Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some entitled parent stories, and our first story of the day is by I Have a Spleen 13. My grandma started nasty rumors about me in junior high. My grandma is an interesting individual. One may place her in the Karen category. She's from a small town where you are either very well off and waspy, or you smoke crack and live in an old school made into an apartment building. She's on the waspy side. Knows everything and everyone. Always will find something about you to nitpick at. Fun times. The best times was 8th grade. She was a math teacher in my school for junior high. Oh boy, was that a dandy time. Because I was her granddaughter, that put a huge target on me. Every day she would watch me like a hawk and wait for the split second I would look away, then shout, "Granddaughter, pay attention! Don't make me tell your mother you're goofing off in my class!" And the whole class would giggle. She would grin and her ego would inflate like swim shorts when you first walk into the water. One time I accidentally wore slippers to school, and for the rest of the year she would bring it up like, "Can you not remember the equation like you couldn't remember your shoes?" Cue malicious grins and laughter. But the straw that broke the camel's back was when I got a boyfriend. Bit of a backstory here. I was held back in kindergarten, so I'm a year older than everyone in my 8th grade class. I was dating a boy in 10th grade, but he skipped ahead a grade, so he is actually a year younger than his 10th grade class. This made our age difference to be only about a year apart. However, from an outsider's perspective, when you hear a 10th grade boy is dating an 8th grade girl, I'm sure your first reaction would be like, ew. And boy, did my grandma eat that up like it was her very last meal. Anytime we would visit, she would make side comments like, "We know granddaughter prefers older men, right, granddaughter?" Or, "If it was my child, I certainly wouldn't approve, but I guess times are a little different." It was annoying, but it wasn't interfering with my life. That is, until she started to gossip about me to other teachers. She would tell them that I was sneaking around with an older boy. I was probably experimenting with things not meant for my age. That I was going into the teachers' lounges and bathrooms with him. She also heavily implied my parents were against all of this. For context, my parents know how old we both were and actually aren't crazy. Also, my boyfriend was the quietest, nerdiest kid in his grade. It took us both 2 weeks of holding hands before we even kissed, so none of this was true. But that didn't stop the rumors. During lunch, I'd get asked by girls if it was true that I'd done certain sexual things. If I was in class and I would ask a teacher to use the restroom, they would refuse. And if they did let me go, they would interrogate me for several minutes first to make sure I wasn't sneaking off to do it with my older boyfriend. Before any of this, I was literally a fly on the wall and I was completely fine with that. Now I was miserable and felt completely helpless. After coming home crying for who knows how many days in a row, my mom got fed up. I remember her screaming, "That's it," grabbing her keys and storming out the door. When she returned, she said that grandma wouldn't be bothering me anymore. Once I got older, she told me a brief summary of what happened. Basically, my mom arrived and approached her calmly, explaining to her that I was her child and she has control of the situation. She even explained the age difference. After asking her politely to back off and stop telling lies to her coworkers, my teachers, grandma scoffed and said, "You don't know what she could be doing behind closed doors. I'm just keeping an eye out for her." This set my mom off. She told me that she started yelling at my grandma about slut-shaming her own granddaughter and how miserable I was. She said she has no right to say or do any of this and what she was doing was cruel and inappropriate. My grandma's response, "How dare you enter my home and accuse me of this? Get out of my house." So my mom left. The next day, my grandma avoided eye contact with me. She didn't even try to call on me for answers or point out what kind of clothes I was wearing. She just averted her gaze and did her job finally. Rumors continued just for a little bit, but then people caught on that it really wasn't as scandalous as the rumors portrayed, and we were left alone. How did this all end? Like you would expect. Grandma acts like it never happened, never brings it up, avoids the conversations if they are around the time when she taught me. It's irritating, but at the same time, it's expected. Now that I'm an adult and we are all aware of her silly ways, we can just smile and nod until we go home, where we then rant about how mean she was during dinner. This kind of has me thinking, if you were growing up and you were in that middle school, junior high / maybe even early high school era, would you absolutely hate to have a parent or a grandparent as a teacher? Or would you have loved to have had them as a teacher? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Staring at the Sun featuring SZA. Karen tries to ruin a cancer patient's Make-A-Wish day so her child won't be inconvenienced. Saw the absolute end-all be-all last week. I work for a small production company and we do a ton of charitable work. That day, a few of our crew members, myself included, were lent out for a Make-A-Wish type thing for a girl whose wish was to have her original song made into a music video. She was battling cancer, so, of course, every precaution has to be taken, COVID-wise. The director reserved a scenic section of the park and got all set up there so we could be outdoors with plenty of distance. Apparently, this was the only section of the park with a picnic area. We weren't aware of this, and occasionally some people would come over pretty miffed asking why we'd reserved the whole picnic area, but before they could get the whole complaint out, they'd realize the situation and leave us be, embarrassed to have asked. This young lady was around 14 or 15 and was having a great time shooting these scenes for her music video. Until cue Karen. A mess of cheap Botox and overpriced athleisure gear started crossing over our clearly marked barricades with her daughter, around 6 or 7. Our production assistant rushed over, figuring she was just too dumb to notice all of our signage and physical blockades, and explained in a hushed tone that she was intruding on a private film set. Karen replied, intentionally loudly, that it was a public park and she had every right to use any part of it she pleased. Now, was it a tad bit inconvenient that we'd commandeered a large strip of public land, the only area with seating? Absolutely. But the handful of people who'd wander over to complain immediately processed the nature of this project and gladly made other plans for themselves. Karen wasn't budging, but we had a permit from the city to be there, so we let her know she could quiet down or shove off. We actually had a right to have her ejected if she was being disruptive to our filming. We really didn't want to though, and we didn't exactly have the manpower to do it without calling authorities, and we didn't want to put a damper on this fun event or make a scene in front of her daughter. So the director paused filming to try and de-escalate things. There was supposed to be a liaison from the Make-A-Wish style program there, but the catering guy had gotten lost on the way to the park, and she'd gone to look for him. So the director showed Karen the permit we had and warned her a final time she either needed to watch calmly or get out of there. She pulled her young daughter off to the side and started trying to goad her into singing. The kid was better able to read the room than mom because she was too embarrassed to start singing and tried saying she wanted to wait until she got home. But Karen kept pointing her phone camera at the kid and shrieking she wanted her to sing there and then so she could film it. Eventually, she started playing some Disney song on her phone and the kid began hissing along, interrupting our footage, much to the Karen's twisted satisfaction. Finally, the director had it, and informed her that even though she had technically moved off of the land we'd physically reserved, that the noise she and her daughter were generating was disruptive, so he could still have her removed. Not even sure this is true, but I think he just correctly assumed that. Hello, 911? This woman is harassing a young girl with cancer trying to experience her Make-A-Wish day. Wouldn't end in Karen's favor. But Karen's pride wouldn't allow her to simply walk away from the situation. So once her daughter had ceased this loud off-key singing, she continued lingering even as her child begged her to go play by a pond almost a quarter of a mile over. Karen continually tried to force her daughter into the shot with hopes that it would make us move, cruelly getting her kids' hopes up and dashing them repeatedly. So I guess the kid wasn't especially bright either. She'd keep saying, "Look, baby, they're making a movie. Quick, go be in the movie so you can get famous. Hurry." And the girl would run onto our set, or tried to, and a production assistant or the key grip would return her to her mom before she could run across our shot. But her daughter's anguished cries of disappointment at not becoming famous each time we returned her to her mom were enough to render most of the footage, if not useless, at least a lot less fun than it was intended to be. I guess Karen didn't think we heard her goading her child into disrupting us with fake promises of superstardom, because when the director came over for her final warning, she tried to play dumb, saying, "Oh, I think she's just dead set on using the picnic space. Since this is the only picnic space in the entire park, it would probably just be easier for you to move, huh?" Said with a combination of faux sweetness and imagined authority. Clearly, she had no idea what it takes to set up for a film if she thought we could just move locations on a whim. The director turned out to be bluffing on calling the cops because he didn't want to create a scene until the liaison returned, so he just had a couple big crew guys keep her and her daughter at bay. Eventually, the liaison did come back, but honestly, she wasn't particularly helpful. Karen deduced that she was who was in charge and who everyone was waiting for in order to take action, so she magically shaped up the minute she appeared and stood quietly to the side. So, when every crew member descended on the liaison at once, she just meekly said, "Well, it's fine if she watches, right? People are probably just curious what's going on." Thankfully, the girl in the video had been having her makeup done for most of this while we filmed a breakup dancer scene, so didn't really notice most of the debacle and didn't care one way or another. Because Karen had a little kid with her, the girl didn't say she couldn't watch, even though she was visibly uncomfortable at the strange audience. She kept waving to and winking at the little girl though, who thought she was some kind of celebrity. It was actually pretty cute and a perfect compliment to her music video Make-A-Wish. Karen hated that and kept muttering to passers-by, trying to surmount insurrection. But unbeknownst to her, just about everyone in the general area was affiliated with our shoot. She did manage to find one or two people who were irritated about the picnic area being closed, thinking we were just some greedy private party who'd sectioned it off from other guests. But then they realized it was some kind of film production and started milling around out of idle curiosity. Again, we were mostly filming backup dancers at this point, a couple of the girls' friends. So I give credit to Karen that if she wasn't paying a lot of close attention to the filming itself, it may not have been immediately obvious what exactly we were doing at that point. That still doesn't make what she did next okay. She'd make the occasional comment to the other picnic people and was winning some of them over. She'd say something like, "But do they need the entire space?" and get an affirmative nod. Whatever. I don't think the other people were really listening that closely. They were watching too intently, waiting for someone famous to pop out in the music video. Our tech people had determined that it wasn't interfering with the audio, so we had begun to ignore her also as long as she stayed out of the way. Then the star girl comes out for her big emotional dance scene and she's really giving it her all. So Karen decides to throw in another blow by turning to a woman nearest her and saying, again, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh god, look, it's one of those girls who thinks it's cool to pretend to be a boy. I'll bet she hasn't stopped to consider how long it will take to grow her hair back." You'd think Karen would have stopped for a second to consider that maybe the girl was not cultivating a chic new look and in fact had cancer. Or, better yet, that maybe a stranger's hairstyle wasn't her business in any case. And maybe her not having eyebrows or arm hair either was a clue. But nope. So our poor starring girl hears this and crumples up into tears, now assuming that the crowds who had been gathering throughout the day were not doing so because they thought she was some famous pop star, but instead to gawk because she was strange looking. She rushed away, and those standing anywhere near Karen hurried off to make clear they weren't associated with her. That's when the liaison realized what we had been trying to warn her about with Karen's behavior and tore into her along with several members of the girl's extended family. Like a true coward, Karen didn't even try to apologize. She just bolted as quickly as she could, saying, "You know, maybe we'll find a different spot since you're clearly busy," as though she was doing us a special consideration. Luckily, our lead's girl entire extended family was there and cheered her up very quickly, and some supportive civilians had showed up with genuine curiosity about the film set, then loved watching her dance for no other reason than that they loved watching her dance. So she was happy and having fun again very quickly after Karen skulked off. But still, really quite a hurtful and inappropriate spectacle. If she gets this worked up over a picnic table, I can only imagine when her daughter starts to face life's real challenges. You don't even want to know the kind of words I would love to hurl at this Karen. How freaking stupid can you be? If there was ever an entitled parent story that riled me up, this is probably the biggest contender so far. And our final story of the day is by Time Second. Entitled parent wants free classes when his son messed up. Backstory: my mom runs a learning center similar to Kuman where every week a kid would get a booklet to fill out. However, the parents of these kids are very much grade driven and also very, very cheap. This leads to a lot of entitled dad and entitled mom encounters. Entitled dad comes in with entitled kid into my mom's office and I'm sitting there trying to finish some schoolwork. "Why are entitled kids' grades not improving, huh? We have been coming here for months and still no improvement." Mom coolly says, "Well, let's sort this out one by one." Mom pulls out entitled kid's file to see what is happening. Mom, while reading the file, "So have you been having any difficulties in school or while completing your assigned booklets?" Entitled kid says no. "Well, that is interesting because my file shows that when we assess you on each booklet after you have completed it, it shows that you have been getting multiple questions wrong and many parts of your booklet are not even completed." Entitled dad interjects, "So what? It is your job to make sure entitled kid completes his booklet, not mine." "Well, when you enrolled entitled kid into this program, you signed a form saying that you and entitled kid would have a responsibility to make sure that you complete the booklet." Entitled dad ignoring what was just said in order to not take responsibility. "Well, why is he doing so bad, huh? If this is not fixed, I will start dropping entitled kid off at this learning center." "We are happy to tutor your child more, but you will have to pay extra." "Pay? Why should we pay? Like heck we're going to pay." "Well, you will either have to pay for extra classes or you will have to get to the bottom of this. However, I did notice that it seems that he is forgetting what he has previously learned, according to his file. Now, do you still have the previous booklets? Because the form you signed says that entitled kid should review the previous booklets even if he has completed it in order to make sure he doesn't forget anything." Entitled kid says, "Well, I threw them out because I don't need them anymore." Entitled dad realizes he is in the wrong and just leaves with entitled kid without saying anything. I say, what an idiot. Mom says, "The one thing I don't miss from my days as a computer scientist is not having to deal with customers." Sounds like a little bit of "my perfect little angel could never do anything wrong, it's all your fault." And surprise, surprise, it's the kid's fault. And the parent's fault too. Of course, the parent shouldn't be having to teach the kid literally everything and hold their hand constantly, but the parent should always be encouraging studying or helping go over topics if they can't really grasp it well, just trying to be as involved as they can without overdoing it. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So, which of these stories was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing and turn notifications on if you haven't so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Any little thing that you do helps the channel grow so much more. Whether it's commenting, subscribing, or just watching the video, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time, right here.